of the Business Development Commission for August 10th at 6:32. And I'd like to recognize that David Pizzolato will be joining us remotely. David, if you could, as usual, just take our attendance. So we have that for the meeting minutes. Seeing as we have members of the public, does anybody have any public comments? Has anybody signed up, John?
No, nobody signed
for public comments. Okay. Does anyone want to offer any public comments? Okay. So before we get further, I would like to recognize, and I apologize, I forgot your last name, but Paul Chezoka, who has applied to be our newest member of the Business Development Commission. I had a chance to interview him before I went away on vacation, and I'd asked him to join us this evening just to get a sense of what our meeting is like. So I'd like to welcome you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, excellent. Okay, at this time, if we could take a few moments to review the meeting minutes from the July 13th meeting. I will entertain or listen to any modifications or corrections to those minutes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 13th.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from July 13th, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Abstain. Okay. All those abstaining, say aye. Aye. Okay. The motion passes. Okay. So I would like to, before the meeting, and I apologize, I'm sure I'm not following the perfect Robert rules on this, but I would like to move item number 6 up to item number 4. I would also like to thank the members of the Beautification Committee, as well as the Planning and, what are we calling that these days?
Planning and Zoning Commission.
Planning and Zoning Commission, for joining us this evening. And if we could go on to item number 6, Josh, kind of
Sure.
That'd be awesome.
So at the, not the most recent, but the Planning and Zoning Commission before that, I asked the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss a potential amendment to the zoning code to allow for what are called projecting signs. And so currently the zoning code and the community graphics regulations within only allow a wall sign to be away from that wall 12 inches. So a block letter or some kind of illuminated letter, it can stick off the wall up to 12 inches and be mounted across the wall. It does not allow for any type of other projecting sign. We do currently have at least 2 that are known downtown in the village. However they happened, if it was our former building services company that might have permitted them incorrectly, whatever the case may be, they do exist, and people think that they look nice. So since now a new company or a new business in the downtown area, I think I wrote in there, on Washington Avenue, they have inquired about putting up a projecting sign. And we told them that it's not allowed, and they asked if we might consider changing the code. And since there's already 2 signs that people seem to like, we thought it would be a good idea. I included some example regulations from other communities that the VDC has talked about, on the Fox Valley especially, that do allow projecting signs in some sense, usually just in a business district or even more specifically in their downtown business districts. So maybe not where the big box stores are, places like that, but kind of in a nice walkable downtown area. The Planning and Zoning Commission did discuss that briefly. Mr. Marock's here, of course, he can comment on that further, but they kind of thought that if this is going to be in the downtown area and it's going to be really about aesthetics and beautification, then they would like at least the BDC's input and of course any beautification members that could attend tonight. So with that, if you have any questions about the example regulations, I just kind of bullet pointed them out to make it easy to read. those are just potential ways that these signs could be regulated. It's, not set in stone by any means. One thing I do want to highlight, I guess, is that a couple of these communities do allow them, or maybe they allow existing ones, as long as they have some kind of insurance on file, since they overhang a public right of way. I did ask our finance director, Lori Lyons, about that. She said it would be great, but it's not something that we might necessarily, it wouldn't be bad if we didn't require it. It would just be kind of an extra layer of protection, but in any event, it's going to be the business's fault if it falls and causes any kind of harm or damage. So that could be something that is included. There's height restrictions, both minimum and maximum. There's, in one community, they have some kind of design review, which can either be administrative or by some kind of committee. Just kind of different types of regulations to maybe get the discussion going. Mr. Mark, do you have anything to add?
Not at this moment, no thanks.
So, any questions or?
So these are, I mean, from when I was reviewing it, it looks like this is pretty common in some of the other downtown areas that we're sort of trying to emulate.
Right, that was the
Right
idea.
now, we're at 12 inches and it looks like we can go out to 4 feet in St. Charles, 5 feet in Batavia, and 4 feet. So it just allows it to just stick off the building.
Well, it's really a different type of sign. I mean, that 12 inches is just for, a sign that's mounted to a wall usually isn't painted on, it's attached in some way. So that could be the signage or lettering or whatever the case could be up to 12 inches thick on any building in the village.
Sure.
So if that's a truck stop that has big block letter signs, it could be up to 12 inches off. So this is a different type of sign that would really allow it to be, two-faced and projecting off of the building. Copper Barrel currently has one, so does Christine Michelle's salon. So they would be similar to that, and then they could be regulated by size, by height, by other types of regulations. And we're not looking for a vote or anything tonight. It's just discussion, because ultimately this is a zoning amendment that the Planning and Zoning Commission has to hold a public hearing on and vote on.
I think it makes the business easier to find, and I think that it, like when I walk through downtown Geneva and there, what is it, 3rd Street, you can walk down, it makes it easy to see down the street what businesses there are, what restaurants there are. I don't really see it as yes, there are inherent risks of a sign falling, I suppose, but if we follow building code, then hopefully we're inspecting it as such that it's safe.
I also, just today I was walking and noticed the salon sign and I thought that looks so pretty,
Yeah.
so I think it adds a little bit of character. I'm intrigued by the design review idea. I hate to micromanage, but at the same time, I understand why some people do it to stick with a certain aesthetic. We work so hard to make Main Street look a certain way, and maybe, I don't know if it's worth having a design review process, but
Or something that's like no neon sign or.
exactly.
Yeah,
Some really broad parameters that
yeah,
For
nothing
example,
flashing or,
right.
For example, one of them, I'm looking for it right now, I think it's Geneva, signs cannot be internally illuminated. So, they can be all lit up at night, or they can have a spotlight on them.
Spots.
yeah.
So
Yeah, we
you
would
could
ever
have
need
regulations.
that, but just in case.
Sure.
Josh, do we have an idea as to what the proposal is?
From the new business, you mean, that I mentioned?
Yeah,
No, so this is a new business on Washington Street that is already located there. They got a facade grant. And they are planning on putting up the sign on their building face right now, pending this amendment going through sometime in the next few weeks. And if it does, then they will mount it separately, but I haven't seen pictures of it or anything like that, if that's what you're asking.
okay. But right now it's 12 inches and the recommendation would be to go to what?
I don't have a recommendation at this point. It was just kind of open for discussion, but common
Okay.
is either 4 or 5 feet in other communities.
Got it. Okay.
Of course, if the commission doesn't necessarily need to pick numbers and recommend that, you could just say, we like Copper Barrels, we like Christine Michelle's, and then when I take an amendment to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their consideration, I'll have some kind of number included that those two would fit in, for example.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of size restriction though, because you also don't want somebody to put such a big sign that blocks any other,
That's a good.
sight lines to other businesses.
Feet sounds pretty big.
Well, there's also area parameters, right? So in St. Charles, depending on the type of sign, it could, there's, you know, two maximums, 8 square feet or 18 square feet. In Batavia, they actually tie it to the size of it. So like a larger building, it could be a larger sign. In Geneva, it's a hard 4 square feet. So we can also, you know, I think Christina Michelle's is quite larger. Maybe we make that the maximum, or if you think it could be a little bigger, or planning and zoning does, maybe they pick a larger number.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in general, I think it adds to Karen's point. I think it has, in general, for business, which is what our commission is primarily focused with. I would think it's, we would be for it, for sure. I mean, does Bill, you have any?
No, it makes perfect sense to me. It increases the visibility of the business from 2 directions versus one.
Exactly.
It's perpendicular to the front of the building versus smack flat on the front of the building, like the Rose Garden sign.
Yeah.
Which I think is what that 12-inch restriction is. That's an illuminated sign that I hope disappears. But as we move forward, yes, I think 2-sided perpendicular to the front of the building makes perfect sense coming north or south on State Street.
Did anybody notice on your way in that there are letters on Village Hall as of today?
Looks very nice
The
out
only reason I
front.
mention that is because it's not visible from the sidewalk, you can't even see.
Right.
But we have ordered a sign that is ordinance.
I kind of like how Geneva has it set on some of their rules, because there's things that they've included that I wouldn't have thought of, like signs cannot include changeable copy. Right, it has to be a permanent copy, that it can only have the name of the business owner, or so it can't have like additional things on it. So they've got some pretty
That's a great.
interesting ways that they kind of thought through their regulations. I just, when I read it, I'm like, changeable copy, I guess, yeah, you wouldn't want somebody always changing the copy of it or saying like Monday special or using it as this, like, as a billboard rather than just what it's supposed to be.
Like a theater marquee.
Right.
What are your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, I'm aligned with the group. I think definitely it adds character. It's everything in line with everything this commission has been for. The only thing I would just throw out there is we definitely want to fit within what currently exists, you know, not, you know, and I think most of you have voiced that concern as well. You don't want somebody to come in and take it to the nth degree and then it overshadows everything that currently exists, right? But yeah, I'm in favor.
And since we have beautification attending, do you have any thoughts on it, Jean?
No,
Okay.
I think what I want.
Christine?
I want one, so.
Okay. So Christine, you're a yes.
I want one.
Okay, Josh, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but yeah, I think in general, we thumbs up.
That's exactly what I would have been looking for, is I didn't really feel it was under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission to make such a broad sweeping ordinance without at least including or at least respecting your input on that. Because this is squarely beautification and business development, visibility of businesses. On the planning and zoning side, we could be a little bit more on the hammer versus velvet.
We're velvet. Well,
Well, I appreciate the input, and Josh and I will be able to come up with something that he'll be more than happy with.
okay, and we appreciate you seeking our input, really.
Yeah.
Gracious that you took the time out of your schedule to come and visit us, but we're certainly, I think, unanimously in favor of it. And certainly, I think the 2 examples that exist in downtown are good examples, so that's the direction. Thank you for watching.
All right, thank you.
All right, awesome. Fantastic. Okay, so at this time, you guys are welcome to stay. This is an entertaining next 3 hours. But, no, if that was the key thing that you were here for, you're obviously free to run your way, but you're also welcome to stay. Okay, so moving on to item number 5 now technically is an update on streetscape, I guess. Jay?
Not much to update really, I guess. Everything is up except plantings, which will happen in September, and the light poles, which will be black. That'll be a pretty dramatic change, which are also due in around September 18th. So those are the last 2 things. Seems like all of a sudden it's just finished.
Looks beautiful.
Thank you. You probably didn't see it along the way much, did you?
No.
You got the whole- By the way, I've had a camera up in the window. There was people on Facebook today saying we should protect the clock with the camera. There's been one up there for several months now. And I've also been taking pictures every 4 hours, so we should have a nice, interesting time lapse on the project.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's contractor's been really good to work with. As you all know from previous meetings, we ran into some real issues on State Street. Those have all been corrected now. And now it's down to 72. That's going along as scheduled too. Water connection project is just about finished. That'll finish also in September. We just have to connect the PRV and charge the water. So it's good. And strike the road. Everything's done except striking the gas road. And if you've had a chance to see 20, that I did a really great job up there. It was only about a week, 10 days, and about 20 now. It's really nice and truck stops. All 4 of our public work projects are moving right along really well.
Excellent. Well, I'd like, on behalf of the Business Development Commission, is to thank you and the entire team for everything that you guys did to bring the streetscape project to fruition. It was obviously a project that was near and dear to our hearts, and yeah, we're happy to see that it's come to a completion. And obviously, very excited to see the lights, the stanchions, I should say. Obviously, we're still interested in the lights that go over the streets. I'll keep bringing that up as long as I'm in this chair.
And trust me, the mayor's very interested too. But we also had a conversation about budgets at the last board meeting. There's no money budgeted. So we'll keep looking for opportunities.
But aside from that, thank you guys for bringing that project to fruition. It was not easy. And there was a lot of, specifically in an inflationary environment, getting it done and getting 95% of it done as to the way that we had originally, I think, hoped for was a win. So
some of those, with the pavers out there now, on the crosswalks, it actually started to look like that rendering that we had done at one time. And I was almost wishing we never posted it just a few weeks ago. But now it kind of looks like that. In fact, the pictures Mike posted, I thought were really good today. It's awesome. So, yeah, it turned out to be all hands on deck. I really didn't expect our public works people to be as involved in that as they were, but our water department learned a lot about our water lines and where they are, where the valves are, something we need to know.
Yeah, right.
And our streets department was invaluable, moving signs around and barricades. Tomorrow, everything's going to start coming down. All the purple signs around town are going to come down. So.
Okay. Well, it was, I think, worthy challenges. I think the end result is definitely worth the challenges.
And for anybody who has not yet received an invitation, there will be a dedication ceremony at 11 o'clock on the 28th, Sunday morning. So Bill's family will be honored then. And assuming you've received that by now, Bill?
Yeah, I thought it said 11:30.
Sorry. I think it's 11 o'clock because I think the parade starts at 11:30, but I'll verify that.
Okay.
It'll be right before the parade.
That's my understanding. Okay.
So, streetscape may have to come off the agenda. A heck of a gaping hole in our.
Say goodbye to an old friend.
Exactly. A 4-year.
Well, I'll have to update when the trees get put in next month. So
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely bring it up.
just one more time.
One more time. Okay, excellent. Bill, do you have anything you'd like to share in the beautification?
Just a couple of points. I failed to send out an email like I usually did after last Thursday's village board meeting. They approved the grant application for the cave at 75%. I think that was a week ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago.
It was
That was the one point. It sounded like they were chomping their bit to get started. I called and left a message for Gina just to see how things were going, and I haven't heard back yet. The other point is Hampshire Social. If you've noticed, they got all the aluminum framing up for all the windows on the front of the building. They're gonna have some kind of unique windows they're gonna open up like, I don't know, accordion or to the side or whatever. So I'm interested to see what it looks like, but all the aluminum framework is in. And I guess the glass is on its way. I don't know when it's gonna get installed. I looked inside, it looks like they've been busy inside. There's a sort of a bar along the left side of the building when you walk in, and I haven't seen what else that they've done. But I also left a message for Brandon as well to just kind of say, what's your time frame? What you thinking? How's it coming along? And I'm just waiting to hear back on that. So those are the really only 2 items that I have to touch base on.
Do you know when the Rose Garden was planning on, or that building, I shouldn't call it the Rose Garden anymore, but that building, what they're planning on?
I can give you an update on that, trustee Kelly. I just spoke with the owner of the building yesterday. In fact, I just texted him a few minutes ago. He expects to be here at 4 o'clock tomorrow to sign a lease with a new tenant. And then we'll be talking also about the contract. He hasn't signed the grant agreement yet. When I spoke to him earlier in the week, or just yesterday, Bill, he said he has another contractor that he'd like to consider. So I was a little confused in me whether that contractor is the one that you already spoken to, because he had two involved already, right?
He had one involved and one kind of on hold that he was referring to that he might involve in the bidding process,
Okay.
but I forget the guy's name, Chris Soto or something
Yeah,
like that.
that's what he mentioned to me. He didn't mention any names, but I expect to get an update tomorrow. I just got a text from him a minute ago saying he expects to be here at 4 o'clock tomorrow. If anything comes up, he'll let me know.
Okay, if he offers any date and time that he might be meeting with the contractor to review the project with someone other than Mr. Soto, by all means, throw my name out there and let him know I'd be willing to make myself available to walk through the project and see the level of understanding that the contractor has.
Yeah, I let him know that when he comes to town that you'd like to meet.
Okay, thank you.
How does that work? Just, I can see, based on last week's conversation, I can see it being a conversation at the village board level. How does that work when the project is approved based on a bid and a project that was already given? If they're looking at getting another bid from another contractor, but it was approved and recommended by this by beautification, by BDC, and then approved by the village, how does that work in the process? And have we ever had something like that before?
Not that I recall, a substitution of contractors essentially. My best guess is we're gonna need to meet, walk through the scope of the project, and that new contractor is gonna need to submit a proposal. Let's see where it comes in relation to the other proposal, and then at that point, I think we would probably inform all the parties, beautification, BDC, and the village board, as to where that comes in terms of the cost and the dollar amount.
Would it need to be though the bid as if it was the same project with the same requirements that were approved, or would it have to go back through approvals?
I think Bill and I talked about this earlier in the week, and I think we interpreted that if he comes in with the same numbers and the same project, that the contractor name is not in the grant agreement. But it's not likely that that'll happen. So my guess is, I also think, keep in mind that Dan's been out of the country for almost 6 weeks because his father was very ill in Macedonia. And so he just returned last week, and he's still trying to collect. I don't think he's had a chance to meet with the contractor that bid since he's been back. My guess is once he meets with them and he'll probably become more comfortable. He was trying to explain to me in a very rushed way yesterday that he just isn't comfortable, that he understands what this contractor's doing. So he mentioned the facade on the side, facade in the front, and I think it's just communication. I think it's because he's been out of the country. So now that he's back, hopefully he and Bill will get a chance to meet. It could be that he'll end up sticking with the contractor.
Yeah, and I think to both your point, the contractor itself may be a moot point. It's if the project changes, then it sounds like we'd have to go back through.
If the scope of the project.
If the scope of the project changes.
I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or the dollar amounts. I mean, if they're less, that wouldn't be a problem, but we'll deal with it when we see the specifics.
Okay, great.
Okay, anything else, Bill?
No.
Okay. As always. All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Okay, so the next thing then that would leave on our agenda would be the developing the long-term strategy for the Business Development Commission. That's our economic development strategy that Jay had asked us to begin work on earlier this year. Prior to getting in the wave of facade application grants, we had begun to work on that. I thought we had made some pretty good progress through January, February, March, and even April. And then obviously the last 3 meetings have been occupied with facade, which is exciting because that was one of our core principal missions. And one more time, I want to thank Bill for the work that he does on that. Has, I think, added a lot of value to our community. And I don't think we'd be able to do that as much without his work. That being said, if you guys could open up or take a look at the spreadsheet, or can you pull that up onto the screen? And I think I included the one that I sent was sort of,
This is what he said.
Yeah, I'm gonna blow it out.
yeah, he included it into the, but only the two ones in blue are the ones that are kind of finalized through the team. The beautification and sustainability, we still really have the, did you guys remember, we went through that process of kind of just a refresher is trying to help Jay and Josh identify the goals and sort of values that we would like them to bear in mind as they sort of look to bring in projects or to discuss with developers, let them know what the the values of of Hampshire, basically. What is our economic development strategy? What would we like to see? And that was a request that they had asked us to do so that as they're having these communications, they can sort of guide their decision making along. And thanks in large part to the work that Josh had done, we had broken this down into a metrics. One, the columns being, or the rows being a set of goals. Those goals being attract and retain businesses. Then the next one is diversify our local economy, enhance the community's image, and then provide additional resources to our residents as a set of the 4 goals that we're looking for. And then Josh has also added that, if we were to sort of look at those goals through specific lenses, that would really help to ensure that we didn't miss anything. And so what we've been working on doing is trying to, sort of marry our lenses and our goals to sort of identify strategies and things that we would like to incorporate. So that's just a quick refresher from what we were doing earlier. So at this point, we're on land use. Those are my notes, the ones I did to sort of, the ask, the homework that we had asked everyone to do was to sort of evaluate all the lenses and kind of put the ones that we were thinking. So what I'd like to do is we don't have to use the ones that I have in there at all. Josh, if you want, you could clean those out. Or we can just build or support. It's fine. It doesn't matter to me. I obviously still have my core copy, so I should have eliminated those prior to. There we go.
It looked like what you had included on the final copy took in from everybody else's sheets as well.
I did. That's right. Yeah. No, you're right. I did. Because. But it's not finalized, I guess.
I was gonna say.
We have only finalized the ones in blue.
Karen and Susie, as well as like the parks and green space.
In the blues, the ones in blue on the top of the ones we finalized.
Correct.
So what our goal would be is to work through land use, communications, village approval, and infrastructure, and just finalize those.
But these represent the.
Yes, I had then coalesced that. I did. Thank you. Okay, so at this point, I think, unless Josh has any other ideas, because I think Josh, you've been sort of the.
All I was gonna say was, once you kind of figured out how you want to finalize them, theoretically, you could end up here with 5 times 30 strategies.
Yeah,
that's a lot for a strategic plan. So I don't remember if we really talked about it back in March or April or whatever, but ending up with, per goal, maybe 2 or 3 strategies was kind of the idea, because we had talked about having kind of less than 10 total, I think was the number, more like 8. So you guys can just decide what you think is most important once you kind of finalize all the ones that you think should be considered.
Once we finalize the columns, then I think we go through and prioritize for all of like attract and retain business. What are the top 2 or 3 across?
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Because this is really some mental exercise.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is sort of an implementation strategy.
Right.
And, which is going to require time and resources.
And then
And I think,
on the last step, I think we'll be discussing how all, the strategies that you end up with should be measured. If it's, because what could happen is we could end up coming back, once a quarter, twice a year or something, and giving you an update on how these strategies are performing, and it'll be up to staff and whoever else to figure out the specific tactics to take to increase those measurements, right? To come up with the specific things that end up in the village's, ends up for consideration to the village board in the budget. Things of that nature will be up to staff, but we can always come back and update you quarterly or however on on the strategies that end up in the plan.
And if we remember correctly, this is only step 4 in a 9-step process, right? That we had identified in the charting the course concept, right? Now, whether we don't have to, this is defining the objectives for each strategy. Actually, this is actually step 3 in defining multiple strategies under each goal. And then the idea then would be to define objectives and then to identify sort of metrics, things of that nature. At least that was what we had discussed earlier. So certainly we're not done with this just yet. And if at any point it's to be too much or it does not appear to have any use, please let us know. We can certainly redirect our energies a different direction. But that is what we had talked about. So that we can eventually identify metrics that we can measure ourselves across going forward. So that being said, land use is a lens with which we want to think about how a strategy under the goal of attracting and retaining businesses that sees through the lens of land use. I think it has been suggested that enterprise zones would be one way to achieve the goal of attracting and retaining businesses through the lens of land use. Does anybody have anything else that, and again, just to reiterate, we can have we'll prioritize later, but what we want to do is just sort of think about, brainstorm any other things that might fit in there and then sort of come back and, this is the brainstorm part, and then we can sort of whittle that down to the ones that we want to focus on.
Let me just reference enterprise zones just for a second. I think we spoke about this briefly, but as you know, there are designated enterprise zones around the state. They're actually geographic areas. But what we learned about a year ago is through URBDA, the Illinois River Valley, Upper Real River Valley Development Authority. I only know their acronym because it's been around since I was in Springfield for a couple of years. They still exist, and now they have the authority to extend enterprise zone benefits to specific companies on specific sites. So it's no longer geographically specific. Since Kane County is part of URBDA, and we're part of Kane County, we give them a project and say this company is investing X amount in land, X amount in building, and X amount in equipment too, manufacturing equipment in the building. And then they give us an incentive letter that says these are all the tax credits that they're eligible for. And they turn those letters around for us in about 48 hours.
Okay.
So we've used that on several projects so far.
Okay.
So that's how enterprise zones work now. You don't have to have a specific geographic.
Okay. Can anyone think of any other ways that we can sort of think about land use, or in terms of attracting and retaining business? Any other strategies that would seen through the lens of land use that would be used to attract and retain business?
Is that for new businesses or can existing businesses go back and retroaction?
Just for
So, that's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't really asked about the logic of that. I can speak to the executive director of Devon. I can ask him about that. But as far as I know, it's just because it's all about job creation.
Right, but also in terms of retention.
Yeah, I just don't think enterprise zones specifically are. But I can look into that.
Okay.
I wonder if the comprehensive plan covers this, but we've talked about, and I think maybe David, Bill, you shared it, the plan that identified geographic areas that were centers of commerce throughout the village and what we would hope to see develop in that area to drive people to like hub areas. I think that's part of probably the comprehensive plan.
Right.
Yes.
But that's what I was going to underscore as well.
Because that's really defining what the land should be used for in those areas. If enterprise zone now can apply to a single business without worrying about geography, well, maybe the comprehensive plan takes that over to say, geographically, this is where we would recommend Hampshire's development to be.
And to also add to that, also within those zones, what type of development we'd like to see.
Yeah.
Just to remind you also that Josh and I engaged with Kane County a while back, which led us to CMAP. And I'm now on 2 different committees for CMAP. I'm not even sure what all of them do, but I show up for their meetings. And
see what happens when you show up.
Online, yeah. They find somebody new and then put you on all the committees, which is great. It's been good education. But they fund comprehensive plans, and October is the cycle when we should be able to apply for funding. And then that, I suspect if we get funded in October, then we could probably kick off a plan sometime after January, starting to plan. Now, we also have to, there'll probably be some match funds required, so it may not be this fiscal year either, but it will in this cycle. But we think it'll open up probably mid-September or early October.
And you know that CMAP did do a plan for us about 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
Yes, maybe 3.5. It was a minor plan. It was a, yeah, I can send it to you.
Is that extra document that's kind of an update to the comprehensive plan?
It was, I just remember CMAP coming in and presenting. It was one of my first, in my first year as
Isn't that more like
a
a training?
trustee.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've got a hard copy of it back at my
You do,
desk.
right.
It was like a training for officials and
Yeah.
even staff on, I mean, there was a lot of discussion with it. It wasn't just a presentation of.
Right, I was gonna say it was specific to Hampshire.
It was kind of the lead up for, okay, here's a lot of good background information for you to start a comprehensive plan if that's what you want to do now.
Yeah, June 12th, 2017, planning priorities report for the village of Hampshire. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that the VC or the village board?
that was village board.
Yeah.
That was in, like I said, June 12th, 2017. It was the third month as a trustee for me personally, so. Okay, so you're willing to.
Just remind me, so the ultimate responsibility of creating the comprehensive plan within the village of Hampshire falls with,
Potentially the planning and zoning commission.
okay, good, so I wanted to make sure.
It's similar, I'll use a really poor example, but similar to your signs. I know that, for the signs, I know that they didn't want your input.
Oh, absolutely. I just wanted to make sure I understood who was ultimately responsible for drafting and creating it. Thank you.
Good, awesome. Well, and obviously, it just to reiterate, just to make sure, because I know we mentioned before, Business Development Commission is really not responsible. We're just helping guide the construction of this, sort of
Right,
as guidance, right?
exactly,
Some of these items we may participate in trying to help accomplish.
right.
You know, or implement some of the strategies, but fundamentally, this is for a village-wide, sort of these are the objectives for the
Gotcha.
village themselves. But very good question. Okay, cool. So, and I can see comprehensive plan is one of the strategies, right? So that is already listed. Does anyone think of any other land use ones that they would like included, or would like to have added? But we're comfortable with, the use of enterprise zones as a strategy and creating comprehensive plan. I think those are pretty solid. Okay, the next goal is diversify local economy. Some of the suggestions were work with, for land use is work with state economic development to attract international companies. Create target areas for increased manufacturing companies. Set a goal of an entrepreneurial incubator. Let's discuss those. Pros, cons, should those stay? Do we have any alternatives that would like to include that?
I like the first one about bringing in the international companies or even out-of-state companies, right? Bringing people into the community. I like that idea. The target areas for increased manufacturing companies. I feel like that's kind of what our main business focus. Like we have a lot of either manufacturing or warehousing or M district type businesses.
Yeah.
Already that I don't know that we would need to target more area for that, but if we're, because I don't know that diversifies us, right? I don't know that it diversifies the type of business we have.
One thing I will tell you that we run into now is that, we have, sorry, guys, I talked to them, is that we have the Hampshire Woods Business Park up north, we have the Stanley Business Park here in town, which is really after more of a warehousing operation, that's what I'm hearing. Rather than having manufacturing.
The additions, correct.
Yeah, the new building, and I'm assuming maybe 2 new buildings that come later as well. We haven't talked about that. So we really don't have business park. Well, we have the 2 new lots that will be available at the Hampshire 90 Logistics Park. But we don't really have another Hampshire Woods type park where we can direct industrial prospects. That's really a great tool. We have one 63 acre site left in Hampshire Woods and then a small 6 or 8 acre site. It's ready to build on. That's really it within the park and then 2 sites within the logistics park. But to have another business park or industrial park identified somewhere, if this commission, that's what you're here about, if you feel that more industrial is appropriate, you'd like to see more industrial, it's a big part of diversifying the tax base. Get a lot more, typically more structure. That's what the property taxes are out of an industrial building than you might just a warehouse building. So I think that's an important diversification of our tax bases, including that manufacturing. But how much do we want? Do we want another business park? We've had a lot of inquiries lately on the Route 20 east of Allen's Corner, heading towards Pingree. We don't have water and sewer down there yet, but it will be getting closer when Private Ventures opens up. So the question for you is, do you think, to your point, Trustee Kelly, maybe we have enough manufacturing, or should we encourage or identify another area and try and find another developer who would come in and put in a business park or industrial park? And does Route 20 become that, or does Route 20, that's been kind of talked about in the comprehensive plan as a town center? We want retail to be going east on 20 towards 47, go about 2/3 of the way, and then it's Pingree Grove's plan area. So that's one thing to think about. Do we want to identify that? There's some large parcels, for example, Charland, and 160 acres behind Eldrell. Those are large parcels that could be zoned industrial. They probably will be zoned that way. But the question is, do we want them developed as a park? The person that owns that land right now is not a developer. He will sell the land in bulk. He's not somebody that will come in and put a parking lot.
I guess maybe my statement wasn't what I had meant it to be, was that we call out manufacturing specifically here, and I think there are opportunities for additional types of land use. In addition, I'm not saying we shouldn't have more manufacturing, but we've talked also about the plot of land next to Lakewood, that it was originally supposed to be a professional business park for office space back then, and so maybe it's just wording it differently so that we identify tracts of land for specific types of businesses, whether it be manufacturing, warehousing, transportation, business parks, healthcare, whatever it may be.
Healthcare, hotel type, potential of some.
The point I was making is that, and I'll include logistics for now, at least, that we have a lot of demand right now, and we have plenty of sites right now too. So far, we've been able to satisfy all the demand. But I see the day when those sites will be gone, 4 or 5 projects from now, and I've got 4 written down on my list to update on later. That we may be out of identified property where I can say, yeah, there's a site right there. There's 12 acres or 20 acres or 150 acres. So to identify additional, regardless of the use, whether it's manufacturing, industrial, healthcare. The lady that just stopped in, she's here. I told her that I would interrupt and ask if she could make citizens comments, but she really just wanted to know because she has a development proposal for an assisted living project. She's looking for 30 acres. And I said, I'll be happy to interrupt and ask them to have you speak. She said, no, I just would like to meet with you tomorrow. That's all right. I told her I won't. I gave her the card. She can call tomorrow. So where will we want to put an assisted living project? 30 acres. Something that I think would be a real great thing to have.
Yeah.
So that, having those areas defined, helping us define where we want those kind of projects.
And I feel like in a lot of successful communities that have those, I'm renting right now in Deer Park, right? So they have an assisted living, they have a really nice Hampton Inn or something. There's an apartment complex with townhouses. There's big Deer Park Town Center. There's retail. It's got this all-encompassing area where if you're living there or working nearby, and then there's also an apartment and a business park. So it literally incorporates everything you just mentioned, with the exception of industrial.
In that
In
area.
one,
Yeah.
large, I don't know how many acres it stands, but that is something that we might want to think about in the future too, without, just seeing how can we marry all these together. That would make a lot of sense and make it really attractive for someone who wants to come and live in the assisted living or rent a townhouse.
So maybe we just tweak it to create target areas for increased business capacity or.
But I'd like to add that I think manufacturing and industrial sort of is a really important piece, though, to maintain the level of focus onto because of the level of tax revenue and it can generate above and
That's my
beyond,
next question.
yes, other uses. As you look at towns like Elk Grove, Wooddale,
Yeah.
for example, what they can do is, because of their focus on industrial and manufacturing, which say it's equipment or widgets, or that can generate a level of tax base that is substantially above, in my view. Now, healthcare is a different animal. I don't know how much freebies they get in terms of, I don't know that market because it's not the market I'm in. I don't know what their tax revenue capability is, but I definitely know manufacturing is significant. And I think that, the long-term goal for us is to deliver results to the community above and beyond just giving access. I think all those things are good ideas, but I really do think it would be in our interest to keep manufacturing and industry as part of because I also think it's unique. I think a lot, Buffett, one of the things I love about Buffett is the idea of being contrarian, right?
You
Whereas,
started to say Jimmy.
well, he likes cheeseburgers
That would be
in paradise. I was just in paradise, so I appreciate that. But the idea of being contrarian, and I think a lot of our communities, oftentimes are focused on some of those areas. And I'm not saying that we should ignore those, but I think given the unique nature of where Hampshire is situated at the cornerstones of these major highways, where trucking routes are ideal, that I think we're ideally suited for.
We're getting a lot of inquiries about rail. I can say in the last 6 months, I don't think I had any inquiries about rail until the last 6 months.
Which rail comes through here?
Canadian Pacific.
Yeah.
And now
So they're
they'll be
increasing so much.
crisscrossing north-south too, because they're acquiring Kansas City Road.
I would just comment, if I may,
Yeah.
just to caution all of us to keep in mind the examples that you brought up, like Elk Grove Village. It also comes with, it gives sort of a reputation or an idea of like, what is this community all about, right? And some may see an Elk Grove Village as being so industrial heavy, and they might think, well, it doesn't really offer more to a citizen or to a resident than industrial, for instance, just because it is so industrial heavy.
Yeah.
And I just think that we have to be careful of sort of what we want to project out to the residents and
Right.
potential residents and potential businesses, where if we become, and I agree it's so important, but if we become too heavy in one area, are we going to be known as just being, the Northwest version of an Elk Grove Village, where it's
Yeah, no.
primarily manufacturing and,
Yeah,
I agree with Karen.
nothing wrong with Elk Grove.
No.
It's just, I'm saying if that's sort of how we want to represent
Yeah.
ourselves, that's just something to take into consideration in terms
You
of.
know what, Karen, I agree with you 100%. I think balance is tremendously important. I don't know if we really have a good handle on what our diversification is of businesses within the village are right now. Do we know what percentage are manufacturing versus retail?
I can just about name them all, but I've never really sat down and done a percentage or anything
That's a
like that.
great question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
And is there, is there any literature to what an ideal balance is? In terms of.
No, what Josh and I kind of played around with is, I like to work with assessed valuations for communities, because that your total assessed valuation today really represents in the growth. I think I shared with the village board a while back during the budget hearings how we saw our assessed valuation drop like a hockey stick after 08. And then it took like 7 years for it to grow back, and now we're ahead of where we were. So that hockey stick like this, and now we're back up. But I'm really, it's probably a software program at some point, but I would love to have a tool where we can just plug in assess valuation, take all the property on our comp plan, on our planned area, and say this could be industrial, this could be residential, this could be retail, and what are the taxes generated. It'd be real easy to plug that into us. I guess at that point, or rather probably a database.
Yeah.
And then we can project out the property taxes, and we can say, okay, this is how we fund our budget by diversifying property taxes with sales taxes and all the other revenue.
Yeah.
But property tax is the one thing that is really pretty easy to define and easy to project. You take 500 acres of the property, Van Vlissigen property by Lakewood, and say, we think that that'll be that's, by the way, not just office, it's
It's a planned business park, so it incorporates a lot of different types of uses.
yeah, it could have manufacturing, warehouse, industrial, all that, and offices. And by the way, just as a quick aside, he's been out here recently, a few months ago, I think we spoke about it. And Chuck Lamphere, the owner, said, this is, first of all, Class A office is what they build. Lincolnshire in that area up north, Bannockburn. His parks are beautiful. But he said, right now we have 40%.
Occupancy.
40% occupancy, but 60% vacancy. In a lot of their big buildings, and they're taking 50,000 square foot headquarter buildings and turning them into 5,000 square feet home office space, for people who are working at home. So he said, and frankly, Jay, this doesn't look like a Class A office market right now. This isn't off in the States right now. What's hot in Hampshire right now is logistics. So really, in my mind, us being prepared to react to what's hot is really how our staff, how we do our job. I think that's actually on your matrix here is responding quickly, being able to have development forms ready and all the things that they give us a good reputation for being good to work with. Not pushovers, but easy to work with. So I just think that's the ability to diversify your tax base, your property tax base, and project that out for decades, really. I see this town, I see us being Huntley in probably 5 to 7 years, 20,000 people before the next 10-year census probably. And Huntley's grown that much. They were 3,000 people just about 18 years ago.
Yeah, no, that would shock me. Okay, so how can we reword that then? So create target areas for, maybe not increase that, I think to your point is, can we say create target,
Maybe for specific business use. So like you could say the area behind Algeloy is a manufacturing or warehousing space, or the area off of 20 is logistics, prime for logistics, but we consider others. And the area that we've seen in the plan before that was like, that's a future home of retail, maybe 72 is prime for retail space and commercial. And maybe it's just saying that we identify areas throughout the community that have optimal use for certain types of businesses, but still may change based on needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to point out that what you're talking about and describing is a major part of the comprehensive plan.
Right, exactly.
So you could just repeat that here, create comprehensive plan with balanced areas, or however you want to say it. And then you just know that that's one of your very important strategies that you want to keep at the end, is comprehensive.
That's what's kind of going through my mind as we have these discussions, after having sat on the committee. It's a 9-month process. I don't know how many meetings, but they went through and reviewed and rewrote and revised every aspect of the former comprehensive plan to create a draft that ultimately went to the planning and zoning committees for review, and then ultimately to the village board. And the village president at the time, Mayor Schmidt, had appointed just a diverse group of people from the schools, businesses, citizens, a really broad group of people to sit and contribute to those meetings. And as we're talking about the zoning and the manufacturing and attracting, those were all parts of that discussion. What areas do you want to focus on? The interchange versus what's going to happen with Route 20 out there where it's starting to develop, and ultimately 72. And it was just a lot of discussion, much like what we're talking about today. So it's just interesting because I remember them reminding us repeatedly that this will be, speak up now or forever hold your peace. Mm-hmm. This will become the roadmap for which the village will seek to the direction they're going to go. So, you need to say your piece and contribute. And that was what I got out of that process. It was interesting. God, that's almost been 20 years ago. That's amazing.
Well, just about a year and a half or so ago, Dave, there's put a lot of effort into kind of redefining some of those zones. So I think that gives us a place to start. But I do think that this commission could, without getting, I think once we have it's a really involved process, as you just described. The next time around, we'll be. I'm sure they'll guide us or give us exercises to sort of determine which areas should be what. But I don't think there's anything wrong with this group who's been focused on mostly the same people for now about 4 or 5 years. I think Dave's ideas and suggestions, you could go that far as to say, yes, 72 should be a commercial corridor. We should provide for the frontage on 72 to be commercial, and anything behind it could be residential or other uses, but we definitely want to use that frontage as commercial, if that's your opinion. And I'm really interested at some point in this commission's opinion on Route 20 headed towards Pingree. Now, should we stick to commercial there and wait for the water to come, water and sewer? Or should we go with an opportunity for industrial or logistics? 20 does head pretty quickly up the tollway.
Yeah.
But it will go by what's going to be between that and the tollway in the future.
Right.
At some point, Oakstead will be right on Route 20, which is residential.
And I think one of the things that, from my opinion, I want to make sure that we just don't become, the 5 years that I've been involved in the villages, you look at some of the surrounding communities and their overemphasis on housing, right? And the overuse of land on housing or just retail space. I think that is not good enough for our citizens. We really need to focus on. So I said, one of the thoughts is focus comprehensive plan on creating target areas for diversified economic development, which is, I think, we should target it, a hospital would be a great thing, eventually target it, more industrial space, I think, or, more logistics space to give our citizens more different types of jobs too. Which is, I think,
It's saying it brings different people to live within the community as
Exactly.
well that would work in those different industries.
And the assisted living is a huge component of that.
Yeah.
those are good jobs, working at places like that.
And how many people would bring their family members closer to home that live here and they need the assisted living?
Right, and the hotels that fill up, people that come in for the temporary stays.
So, okay, so we'll incorporate that comprehensive plan. So that was the modification. Okay. All right, so the next one is set a goal of entrepreneurial incubator. Do we have any thoughts on that? That was something that was brought up. We've talked about that for a long time. I think that, this is sort of the, maybe bougie way of looking at the new world, which I think is important. I think the transition from a scaled economy where we're, merely lemmings, in a big world of, where we're just responding to corporate America, but where we're actually trying to develop, citizens with agency and giving them an opportunity to participate in the broader economy is something that if we can participate in doing, I think adds a lot of value, not just to our youth, but to our, creative. And we talked about that, whether it's a kitchen, a shared kitchen, we've talked about that. But I think over the long term, I think that is something that would allow us to stand out, I think, amongst some of our other competing communities. But I also think it delivers some value to, we all don't, I think there's a lot of people in this town. I think, did we talk about at one point how many home businesses we had here in town? Was it like 1,400 or some crazy number like that? And, I think certainly we don't have a lot of funds, as we're all aware of, for those kind of things. But I think I would like personally, I like that one. I was just kind of curious with the rest of the group. Do we think
So
that
I brought to a board meeting, I think it was a board meeting, and I believe it was from an email that Congresswoman Underwood had sent. That there were grants and it was great to hear that Mr. Hedges said, we apply to some of these already. But there was a highlight of she had said, here are the local within my district who I was able to get grants for. And one was Huntley, I think is who it was, for an incubator space. And it was a couple $100,000 that they got.
Was this a community funding project grant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it was, and I brought it up because I know we had talked at one point about even the old dollar store being a potential space. And I had just said, hey, it's great to know that could be an example of how we apply for funds in the future. If that's something that the community, that the BDC, that the board says, yeah, we're interested in doing that. But it sounds like that's what Huntley is going to be having. I don't know what time. I think maybe they're retail, retail incubator.
I think they're doing something in their downtown with some space there, a rather small space. But by the way, we do have a community grant coming for over $500,000. I think I just sent that to the board last week. But it was for the Park and Ren stormwater problem that we had. And that we've been told that will now be funded. It's just a matter of time. So that's good news. But yeah, we went that direction as opposed to the incubator.
And I agree. I think it sounded like from the description, it's what you're talking about. It was to help those that are ready to move from a home-based business into potentially a retail as that intermediary step of you have a space within this area to help you kind of get into retail. And then with the goal of getting your own brick and mortar kind of.
So this isn't school-based. This isn't like high school incubator, college. This
That
is,
could be ideal if we had brick and mortar, and everybody's been talking about the dollar store because it seems so obvious it'd be a great facility for that. but, you have to find somebody to do it.
No, but
It
I mean,
wasn't
this
for
is
students.
this is targeted for the
Yes.
21 and over crowd that are wanting to create a business. This is not targeted for like an
I'll find
educational
an
purpose,
email that
correct?
sends it to you and forward it to you that kind of talks about the project.
Yeah,
And the funding levels. I'll send it to you because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was for actual businesses.
Yeah,
It
it was
wasn't like,
exactly what you've talked about here, because I remember reading.
yeah, it
just
wasn't
like you did,
education based program.
because my only concern with the community funding part, it's great for bricks and mortar and it's great to build a building, but then to sustain the programs, you have to have, the income and the staff.
And staff.
The
Yeah.
program and the curriculum, and it becomes a whole department that, which is awesome if we have the
Right.
capability and the resources to do that.
Yeah.
But,
Brian, remember when we talked about Streetscape 2.0 with Freddie, because there was more money coming along, and we were gonna do a big incubator, like $1 million incubator, we put this whole thing together, and I can't remember what happened to it.
We didn't qualify.
We
for
didn't,
kind of-
we didn't get an appointment.
Too rich. But I think to the point that Josh was saying, this is probably not going to be something, one of the first things that we select as a strategy that needs to be implemented now, but I think over, and to your point, Karen, too, is until we have a staff, until we have, but I think it would be something that I think we should kind of keep as a, value that we can deliver, as part of our core values, that we would like you guys to be thinking about. Staff.
Again, if somebody walks in the door and says, I want to do an incubator, now we know that that's what you guys want. I mean,
Yes.
we've known that for a couple of years.
Yes.
Everything that you can tell us you think is important for Hampshire, that helps us a lot. Then we run it by the board when necessary, the mayor, and that gives us some direction. Now, somebody calls recently and says, I want to put manufacturing in the corner of 72 and French Road. My first reaction is that doesn't sound like the kind of thing that this board, this commission and our board would probably be in favor of. It's not a great location, not good for transportation to the tollway until someday French Road goes north. So that's the kind of direction. And to the extent that you get into a plan or even into a matrix like this, it just gives us more to work with. The better we can read all of you and the village board and articulate that to prospects, that's what we can tell them. When other communities go, we don't know, just fill out your form, spend your money on the zoning application, and you'll find out if the plan commission will approve it or not, or the village board.
Right. Okay, can anybody think of anything more for diversifying the local economy through the lens of land use? Any other, through that lens, ways that we, strategies that we can use to achieve diversifying the local economy? Or do you think the three that we have there are sufficient?
it's sufficient. For now.
Yeah, I think three is a good number there, unless
Yeah.
there's a really compelling one that would jump out at us. I don't know that, so. Okay. So if we look at the goal of enhancing the community's image, from a land use lens, I mean, the first thing is, focused on parks and green space. I think that was, I don't remember, and I apologize, I just sort of filled these in for the sake of conversation. I don't know whose ideas these were specifically, but we'll pretend like we're all uniminded, we all think the same. But does anyone have any issues or questions in terms of the items that we have there? Should we take or any of those three strategies we shouldn't consider? Or should we modify the wording on any of these, or add something that is more compelling? So we're just open the floor for conversation. And in terms of land use, the lens of land use for enhancing the community's image, the goal of doing that.
Well, I like all three of these. I think they're all important.
We
Everybody
probably
can
have
benefit.
bikeability to walkability.
The walkability is.
Mobility. Yeah, I think that the communities that are doing the walkability, bikeability are way more cool. I mean, I obviously very particularly aware of that right now with all the stuff that I'm doing. But like Elgin's Prairie Path is, oh my God, it's so nice.
Well,
I'm
even
starting
for
to
the residents,
visualize
when
that
you go
map
on,
around now.
when you go on any other realty websites now, when you look at homes, walkability scores are like front and
Yeah.
center on a lot of those now.
Mm.
For the community that they're within. They
Absolutely.
show like the school ratings, the walkability
Walkability
score,
scores.
and then I think it's like, the sun scores or something. Like that.
No,
And
Prairie
it's-
Ridge, Prairie Ridge will be walkable to downtown as soon as they're gonna be building neighborhood R probably right around this fall or early in the spring, which is on this side of Allen Road. So at that point, we'll have sidewalks to, almost to State Street.
Wow.
So people on both sides of Allen Road, Prairie Ridge can walk, be able to walk downtown. I think it's less than a mile probably.
Yeah.
Maybe a mile and a half.
And it's something that benefits not just residents, but people who work.
Yeah.
Right, they take lunch and then want to walk around.
Exactly, yeah. Well, and it just, I think it improves access to your business, and honestly, I think Hampshire's not real walkable. A lot of ways right now.
Which is sad, 'cause it's so beautiful.
So, well, I mean, you can't just look down the street,
Yeah,
but then that's not a safe, so I think that's one of the things I think definitely is.
Don't forget, we did get our Safe Routes to School grant, which will be coming soon.
that's
So we'll be adding
nice.
a lot of sidewalks down.
That's great.
That is really
I should say downtown in Golden.
good, yeah. Focus on parks and green spaces. I mean, this is more for when you guys are dealing with developers, right, that's a big piece. Is to make sure that.
The
And private
criteria,
condos are
the
good.
criteria that's in there really just works right now.
I think it's helped too with how you've worked hard to build that partnership with the park district as developers are coming in, because then it's not on the village to own, maintain, and I guess those are the two big things for that green space. It's then, okay, want to be cognizant of it, it needs to be part of the plan, but then we also know there's the organization that would take that on.
Yeah, right now, the park district is actually working with Crown and a group that wants to do a ball field, or let's say a sports field.
Nice.
And it'll be a 30 acre complex that was headed toward the park district. Park district said, no, we'd rather have these people develop it than we both use it. So that's getting pretty close.
Curriculum.
Are there any conservation areas?
Permit.
Are there any conservation areas within Hampshire?
It's a huge-
Do we have any like
Protect-
conservation easements or any other protected areas?
No, not like a preserve or a land and water reserve. I mean, Kane County Forest Reserve has 2 forest reserves. There's one up on Allen Road, one just south of town on French, which are pretty large. But no, we don't have any protected areas.
There's a lot of protected wetlands and all that can't be developed, or this would be very expensive to develop.
Flood areas.
Do we have any, so in Barrington, we have conservation easements, and I don't know if there's anything that would qualify out in this area. And I don't even know the specific to what qualifies for a conservation easement, but landowners have conservation easements. And I'm on the board of the conservation trust in our area, and so we work in partnership with landowners and businesses that basically give us the land to maintain in perpetuity, and it can't be built on. And it's some great tax incentives for people. It's great for people that preserve the open space. It's kind of a win-win for everybody, and it's sort of a nice draw. And I don't know if we have anything in this area that would,
I imagine that several of the farmers in the area probably have some conservation easements under the CRP program,
Okay.
which is not a village function. It's a county, which ours happens to be Kane and Kendall County, Kane DuPage County Soil and Water Conservation District. So there's programs through state funding where instead of growing crops near waterways and other areas of interest, then the state basically pays them not to grow them and then maintain it as some kind of natural prairie or wetland. So I imagine that exists, but that's up to the individual landowner to participate in. We can certainly push that type of information out if that's something you're interested in.
Well, we also have a resident and a village trustee who are interested in developing prairie land and preserving prairie land. In fact, the question from the resident, is there any benefit to the community or any cost? So we've done some preliminary research on that. What kind of planting is required? Where could it be? Unfortunately, the site that he had in mind was the village hall site. So, and there is some land there that probably will not be built on in the long run, but right now it's leased to concrete for 3 years.
But that's a great point for future development though, is when we talk about green space, could conservation space be included in the conversation, right? Or should it be?
In fact, on the west side of Prairie Ridge, there's actually prairie planting back there that Crown accidentally mowed a couple times. And then once the residents saw it was being mowed, they wondered why it wasn't being mowed anymore. But now it's getting pretty tall and it's just actually it was really beautiful this summer. It was in full bloom, it's starting to die out now. But yeah, I would call that a conservation, maybe not designated, but it's open space that they had to provide open space instead of just sod and trees they put in a real prairie.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. There's a lot of land trusts in the area and different alliances throughout Illinois. Be interesting to kind of see if they've tapped into this area.
We have some very interesting landowners who are starting to open up a little bit to the idea of development, but others who I think might be more inclined to do it.
And it's a nice balance if we show as a community or as a village government that we're willing to, we see that the importance of both, right?
We had a company that was doing some preliminary work on locating a solar farm. We were all about it. We had a perfect site for it too. And because it wanted it as kind of a buffer between residential and industrial. But it turned out that that site did not qualify, it didn't meet all their criteria. But we're very open to that idea. I think our board would be too.
That's good to know.
So I think we'll keep those three. And I don't know if the one in the middle really is necessary.
Like you just tried, let's use the comp plan again, so.
Yes, it's a compliment again. Let's take that down. And I think those two are two good strategies.
Yeah.
In terms of enhancing the community's image for sure. Can anyone think of any other, Dave? I know you're off site, so I apologize.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to jump in where needed, but I align with everything that's there.
Okay. What about providing additional resources to our residents? And how can we, obviously the bikeability, walkability is could potentially be put there too. Is there any other strategies that we can think of through the lens of land use in terms of achieving the goal of providing additional resources? And I know we've talked about community gardens and things like that, but I know those are really hard to pull off.
I think on the
Yeah.
prairie
Or maybe the prairie thing.
on the prairie part of it, you can turn those into educational spaces. South, it's tiny, it's part of their ball fields at the park, but at South Elgin, they've got a little area that said this is a designated prairie planting, and then they have a sign that talks about the different types of vegetation that's in there and why it's important. And there's kids that run by it all the time, but they can stop and read that. So sometimes I've seen on prairies, they do a walking path of, here's the different vegetation, here's the history of this area. It was, the soil due to the glacial soil that's here. And
And to your point, like our conservation trust, and we exist solely with donors, right? We're a true nonprofit. Well, we have a partnership with the school. We have a field right across from the high school in Barrington that was donated to us that we maintain, and we've used it now for school internships and their botany department and their stormwater. I mean, they've got these really niche little programs that they allow us to kind of bring to the school and use in collaboration with them. And we do some summer internships, but it's kind of a neat way to incorporate a partnership, with the different education systems and.
Sure. I
Are
would
the
mention
donors other than developers, or do the donors tend to be developers, or the other type of owners?
Big equestrian community, right? So we've got a lot of just really passionate landowners, but we've had some companies in the area that we've been talking to. No developers.
We really haven't reached out to anybody except developers who are required,
Mhm.
but we've never really reached out. And I think that's probably something we should do. In fact, an organized way for donations.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know in the long run, how that would impact financially the village, but from a PR standpoint, just from an opportunity to attract residents with different ideas. I mean, it's something, I wouldn't put it as a priority A maybe, but I think it's a neat thing to explore just in the future with all the development going on. Some people might be concerned, and people that came out here because they like the open space and they're concerned that there's going to be, even if it's just perception, development.
Yeah, I even think certainly some of the maybe older people who've been here, their families have been here, the legacy families, things like that might sort of bring,
Plus, we talked about electric charging stations and just the whole environment right now with, keeping conservation at the top of our our conversation. It's just something nice from a PR standpoint as well. And of course, it's important, but.
Okay, so think that's a good idea, is to sort of try to, providing additional resources. I don't know the best way to word this, but is to incorporate some conservation, whether that's,
There's great tax benefits as well.
yeah, well, I mean, and it's, like you said, I think there's actual, there's real value.
Yeah.
And, at
It's a
least
win-win.
getting people to think about it. Creating, conservation, objectives, creating
Opportunities.
Yeah, conservation objectives and opportunities,
You may have some landowners that look at estate planning, and donating land helps to offset some estate planning. If they can donate it for conservation and it's protected, that may be attractive to some that have the land up there as well. So it's not just new development, but to your point, people that may already have the land that want to plan for the future.
And it might help, some of these landowners that maybe are concerned about, turning into the metropolis, which.
They're all concerned about it until they offer them a bunch of money.
Yeah. So there's an example of this.
All the surrounding people don't like it. They offer them money.
I'll have to look at who the person was, because it was a famous person, but in Sleepy Hollow, there's a dog park that was donated by that family as a part of the estate they raised, I think it was Irish setters or a certain type of dog. You can still see the kennels there. They're gorgeous, but it's just a dog park, and they left it, the family and the estate left it to the county with the requirement that it stayed as an open dog park to the community.
That's awesome.
And it's gorgeous, like half of it's woods, it's all fenced, so the dog can go through woods, they can go into open prairie. It's gorgeous, but that's like, it was left with a specific purpose for free to that community, but it had to stay for that use. And so I think there may be other families that want that type of
Legacy.
to be left.
Yeah.
I'm not looking.
And that adds value to your residents, right? I mean, to
It
have
really
a place
does.
to take your dog. Like, I remember when, my wife and I had first gotten married, we had a dog. And, that was sort of our social activity, is we would take our dog to the dog park out off of Swift Road and Army Trail Road, in Glendale Heights, Carroll Stream area. And, it provides a ton of value to people.
So it's called Schweitzer Woods, and it's donated by, it was donated by Emily Schweitzer, and it's a 160-acre property
Wow.
Where is it?
in Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, Sleepy.
Right off, like when you go through Sleepy Hollow and you hit the stoplight near the fire department, if you
Yeah.
turn left, it's just right down there.
I mean, it also brings, you also have some of these parks that you can have rental opportunities, like Barrington, their Citizens Park, where you can rent out the big structure that they have, and clubs use it and rent it out. People rent it out for like small gatherings, and that brings a nice sort of opportunity for different income and just, again, that community feeling. But I could go on about this, but yeah, there's a lot of opportunities with the open lands.
And
and
so her only
keeping those
request
parks.
was to maintain the property as passive open space.
That's cool. I take my dog.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, there's more than just the dog park there. There's
Yeah.
other things too, but that whole tract of land was for them.
Should I put in that space, Josh, creating, and I can just, I'm taking those two if you want, I'll shoot it to you. So, okay, I think that's land use. Anything else compelling that we want to jump out and or add, or do we feel like is missing? I mean, obviously we're creating a lot of strategies, which is going to require us to sort of narrow them, but I think it's still valuable for you guys to have. Anything else in terms of achieving our goals through the lens of land use? Okay, all right, so that is 3 of 6 done. All right, so I think it's 10 minutes to 8. Communication, I think, you guys want to take a shot at getting that one done? Or do you guys want to move on? We've got some other things to do this evening. Not much else, honestly. We've got, where are we at? I'm I'm open to the committee's opinion on this. We really just have to go over Hampshire's very own, which is, I don't think anything has really changed from last month. We got the O'Reilly Dental article had gone out last, and then we got updates on new or existing bills. You guys want to take a shot at getting communication next? I think that one might go pretty quick.
Sure.
You guys up for that?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. All right, so in terms of attracting and retaining businesses through local communication, we had listed continuing Hampshire's very own program, which I just mentioned. Do we still think there's a value in that program?
I love it.
Yep. Good, good.
We just gotta keep the business coming.
That's right. Yeah, so we can have more articles to write. Okay, keep website current, communicate programs, incentives clearly. That also seems to be a bit of a no-brainer to me. In terms of how do we feel like the website's doing right now? Just out of curiosity, does anybody go on there? I know obviously you guys are involved in it, but whenever I go there, I seem to find what I'm looking for without much trouble.
I find it very functional. Josh has added a lot of whole sections of pages with sites, vacant buildings, a lot of economic development stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he's got a concept in mind for even more. So we'll just keep adding them. Okay.
But obviously, in the modern world, that's super important, right?
Well, one thing you might also be interested to know is that as part of our migration to our new ERP system, Tyler, there's gonna be a module that's gonna give us an app for the village that we're pretty close to being done with and we'll be launching this fall. So there'll be a lot of the same website content will be on the app as well, and then some other modules for, residents to report issues around the village and things like that.
Awesome.
It will be the Hampshire app too. It won't be download somebody else's app and then log into Hampshire, just see Hampshire, Illinois. Download it
Nice.
from either app store. Josh learned the hard way that iOS is a lot more demanding than Android when it comes to their apps.
Oh, really?
A lot of documentation. Android, you just say, go do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably why the Apple stuff works all the time.
And they don't get hacked either.
Sorry, I gotta put in my old Apple plug every once in a while. Sorry, Brian. I saw you give me a plug.
The only-
Social media,
I only had one. Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
on, Ryan.
No,
The only thing I had was, at some point, we should consider an always-on sustainable marketing program for the village, as it relates paid search, social, that can cover business development and overall events. I think the village has come a long way in the last couple of years in putting out marketing, which I think has been fantastic. But at some point, we're going to grow to a size where we should have a full-time marketing support in place to emphasize key events or key initiatives the village is going after. Now, this one is near and dear to my heart. So I know, this one might not resonate with everyone in the room, but, for a lot of the things we've talked about over the last couple of years, being findable, how do we get more attendance to Coon Creek? How do we let people know where we're at? Things like that. A lot of that can be reinforced and lives forever with marketing. So if there's a way for us to say that once we hit that number, 10,000 residents, whatever it is, not saying that Jay and Josh, you guys have to do it all yourselves. The village hires on a retainer basis a marketing person or agency to constantly feed the news cycle out there of all the great things that we're doing as a village, not only business development, but other things.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. I know it's been a topic of conversation for a while, and I would think too, on top of the need of hitting that inflection point where it needs to become more of a strategic focus, I would guess that there are staff and officials of the village that would be happy to give over the different response taking on into somebody that approaches it as their full focus and work. And
Right.
yeah,
So Ryan, maybe just for your notes, I added that under enhancing the community's image.
Okay.
I think it falls in there.
And I was gonna ask Dave to kind of explain that again, because it's.
That's
an
actually
area
always
full-time
on concept.
person. Oh,
Would
having
that be under
full-time.
communication or would that be under?
It's, I put it at the crossroads of community image and
Okay.
communication.
Okay,
And I would agree. I think if we can get to that point, it would make sense.
and it's, you said always on, I guess that's a term I'm not.
Yeah, so what always on, what I mean by that is, when you start up doing marketing, usually it's as we have news, we publish it. Versus always on means whether or not you have news, you insert news when you have it. Otherwise, you have generalized content that fills in the gaps to where you don't go dark, you know? So if we're looking at business development, we might only have stories that resonate with the village 4 times a year. But if you commit to always being present in front of your key audience for all 12 months of the year, you become more top of mind.
Just requires a lot of content.
Yeah.
It does. It does. It's a big lift.
Understands like what's too much, what's too little, exactly, right. Which, but a marketing professional would really know how to fill that content.
When I think about always on, I think of something different, and that is when, like in the private sector, you find an engineer who's working on Saturday or Sunday, he wants to find the specs for your machine so he can put it into this project. And we're trying to make the website that way for developers and builders. They come on the website on a weekend, they can fill out a permit application, they can do everything online. They can read all about our code. We try to put everything in that section of the website so they can see what the various zoning classifications are, all the code requirements. So a person could actually get on our website from the very beginning and set up an account, apply for permits, apply for zoning, apply for annexation. All that can be done through our development package now. And so to me, that's kind of what always on means is your website's working 24/7, whether there's somebody there to answer the questions or not. And also with this app that we're using, My Civic, it's called, right? That'll have, it'll have like FAQs, so you ask questions, it'll have programmed answers that you get answers right away the same time. You won't have to wait for a human being to come back to you. That's one of the things. Or it can also send requests right to a department head or.
Okay. So, okay. So, yeah, enhancing community image, I think, is the right place. I would agree. So that is sort of creating a dual objective of sort of being always on in terms of access to necessary information, as well as, I think, Dave, to your point, trying to maintain the attention of your core audience.
Although,
Is that what you're saying, Dave? Like staying present, in social.
Yeah,
space?
it's just, you don't always have to be out there with new news. Sometimes you develop a calendar that could be, go out 3 months at a time, and you meet with appropriate, meeting with zoning and planning, meeting with BDC, meeting with beautification, and try to collate a calendar of content of what's important. Not only news, did you know? There's just so much. And then, there's so many different tactics, whether it's paid search in Google, are we doing any paid search where somebody is looking for vacant land or things like that? You can customize paid search in Google or Bing with that kind of marketing, with those kind of marketing funds, and be quite effective.
I think it's also using that vehicle to promote the businesses within town.
Yep.
Instead of just Hampshire's very own, but you could, if a company is coming out with a new technology or some really cool newsworthy thing, why wouldn't we as a village want to help promote that one of our local companies is doing something very different, or a restaurant has a new chef come to town and who's this new chef that's coming in, or something like that,
Right.
that isn't just about, here's an overview of the business, but here's a local business we want to amplify because we've got some cool stuff happening.
And
Like Karen's business wins an award, right? We feature that, right?
Yeah.
If you weren't so
I didn't even,
secret,
if it was on, I would have known. No.
you can't because you're so secret about what you make of it.
Yeah, no, but to your point, I think also working maybe in partnership with the chamber, because I think the chamber
Yeah,
does a really good job of talking about different businesses, right? And so I think they do cover a good portion of that from the chamber perspective, and maybe actually that would alleviate some of that feeling of like, gosh, there's so much to cover, knowing that the chamber is covering some of the smaller
It
businesses.
could be
in the area.
amplifying the chambers.
Or amplifying or cross
stories
promoting,
through, yeah.
Right.
cross-promoting, But having that joint approach.
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Just real quick comments. Remember that we're part of the Elgin Convention of Visitors Bureau, so they get funding based on our population. So whenever we send them a press release or anything to do with tourism, they always jump on it. They're really good over there. Every year, we just send them a letter saying, yes, we want to be part of the Elgin Community Convention of Visitors Bureau, so they get funding from the state based. That's one thing. That's the only thing that's ever happened.
Well, it was good enough for two.
There you go. Makes sense.
I was just saying, because Karen, you brought up earlier retention, right? We talk about bringing new businesses, and it's easy to do business with Hampshire, but how do we let businesses that are here know? We care about them, we want to spotlight them. I think the Hampshire Very Own is a great way of doing it.
Yeah.
I think there are other opportunities through what Dave's talking about to continue that in.
The other one is press releases, I was gonna say. If we just took a Hampshire's Very Own and put it in a press release, it would end up on the front page of the Herald. And I don't subscribe to any of them anymore because I couldn't keep track electronically of which one I kept getting the wrong one. But I walk every morning and I read the headlines from my neighbor's newspapers, really, the Wall Street Journal to the Daily Herald. And I see things going on in all the communities around. There used to be a reporter, there's actually a chair back there for the reporter to sit in. It's been a long time since they covered those board meetings, because I don't think we had that kind of staff. But if I have good contacts with the Daily Herald, with the radio station out of Elgin, they're always looking for news on their radio station.
Sure.
So it's just a matter of taking the time to issue a press release for some of these things. That's part of having that marketing person.
Yeah.
Which could be, a remote person that doesn't have to necessarily be like present and.
Is that part of like PR? I don't have a PR.
Yeah, we have,
Sort of
we actually have some
committee. I
funding
mean,
in the budget.
is that more where you guys would sort of create ideas, the sort of?
So the PR committee, I think, would set strategy
Right,
and,
right.
and goals, similar to what we're doing for business development. I think the role that Dave's talking about, kind of the same way that Josh and Jay kind of go across multiple committees and help on multiple things, is that person, yeah, they'd be aware of what the PR committee is doing, the BDC is doing, and the chamber is doing, and the township is, right, it's like that catalyst across. I don't think that they're a function of the BDC.
Right.
Staff member of the village.
Okay.
Just my,
No, yeah, I mean, and I think that, okay, yeah, I think that definitely falls in a communication is a strategy to achieve communicating in the effort to enhance the community's image, but also in a sense attract businesses. I like where you thought of it, actually. Okay, anything else, in terms of communication, okay, so keep website current, communicate program incentives clearly, which I think we are doing, but it's certainly a strategy we'll continue to do. Anybody have any other ideas where thinking about communication in terms of attracting and retaining businesses?
I hate to bring it up about the brochure.
I feel like we deep six the brochure.
Did we?
Really?
Okay.
Pretty much, at least that one.
That seems to be the message that I get.
And really what I said at the last time we talked about this is, I don't think we can handle it any more than what we're dealing with right now. 2 years ago, it didn't seem like there was that much going on here.
Right.
And I think you were all talking to me about marketing, going out and getting business. I think it was already here, frankly. It was just having people that could meet with people and accept the people that want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
We really haven't reached out to many people at all, except landowners for the most part.
Yeah.
Because people are knocking on our door. So I think at the right time, maybe after, who knows what's gonna happen the next year or so, but I feel a slowdown in the housing market for sure. So I don't think we're gonna have to worry too much about being overbuilt. But then what, the logistics is hot right now. What's gonna be the next hot market? Just to be ready.
Well, if there's a lull in activity, it's always something that we can visit down the road. The need for the brochure, pick up the ball. and run with it.
Yeah, I mean, we,
So,
got
constantly
pretty good skill.
reevaluating if there's a need for it down the road. Whether it's something we can run with.
Okay.
I think we had all the little components. It's just we tried to put it together between two committees that didn't really work out.
Yeah. Okay, what about using communication to diversify the local economy? With Vincent working with the chamber to be sure to push out workshops they're holding. I don't know if that's really, strategy standpoint, just kind of open to thoughts on those two. And then communicate through various media types of companies that our residents want. Coordinating the chamber. I don't know if that was really, we talking about surveys there. Or sort of channeling the desires of our residents. I'm not really sure. Those might need some refining.
I wonder if that second one is like, to go back to kind of tie a thread to what Dave was talking about, could that second point be being present in trade publications in industries we want to attract? So that, and I'm not saying necessarily placing ads in those trade company businesses, Hampshire especially, but Jay saying kind of capacity for new development right now. But could it be that we're present where those industries are?
Good idea.
So like taking out ads in trade magazines too? Like a traditional sort of.
Well, I know even at like manufacturing, maybe to kind of answer your question, even at some of the trade shows that we go to for manufacturing. I mean, there have been communities that have been represented if they're doing like Michigan was all over it, just trying to get people to come out there, right? So they would actually set up a booth at the trade show.
Okay.
On like the Chamber of Commerce's or some of the different villages and just sit there and answer questions as to why all these companies should move to where they're at.
Sure.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it was something similar, maybe not at a trade show, but like it could be
Or publication.
publication, whatever it may be, where we just start to be in the minds of people that may not even know who Hampshire is or where the heck Hampshire is, right?
I
And
think
they
it's a great
start to look
idea.
at it and say, oh, what's this community that we're talking about?
Mhm.
And another way you can,
Key part of that.
That's, yes, yeah.
Sorry, Dave.
another way you can achieve that is by working with editors or writers within trade publications. They can write a story and interweave your town or an example of something, like a business or within their story, just to resonate with that reader. They could be writing about something just about an industry topic and then interweave something within Hampshire in that story. There are ways to get around doing that versus taking out full page ads in magazines or
highlight a company or, right.
Right.
It's a good story there, yeah.
Like a Hampshire's very own, but in
Exactly.
a trade publication.
Great idea.
So how would so where would that fall in our matrix, do we think?
We need that marketing person.
Just the marketing person, it's just,
Yeah, maybe it is just another add-on to what Dave's talking about for that marketing person to find the ways to amplify through various channels.
and I'm not sure that I actually totally captured that in any of these exactly. It almost seems like that would apply to all of these, right? That marketing person, almost like a footnote, to attract and retain businesses, diversify the local economy, sort of creating.
I actually have one more thing that person could do. And Jay, you're kind of doing it now, but it might, for the right person, and is I recommended that, and this is under the last bullet, but I'm jumping ahead, is a liaison assigned to new businesses or small businesses, entrepreneurs, to walk through the process of development and maintain that relationship for their first year within the village. As they, once they start their business, I'm sure they're going to have questions. And this is a way for them to kind of be shepherded through and supported. Now, the chamber does a lot of that as well, right? So maybe it's partnering with the chamber, but I do see, once a business gets here and starts, what relationship do we have with that business for the first 12 months that they're operating?
Like a
Once we get an
mentor or
occupancy
buddy
permit,
system.
We're pretty much done with
Yeah.
it. Now, anyway.
But I wonder if that's a partnership with the chamber of like a mentorship or
Yeah.
an onboarding program in the community that's unique, that's offered through Hampshire, but the chamber would design and run.
And we have that in that final bullet, I think, is that what you're referring to, Dave, and
Yeah.
that offer a non-pay internship for marketing communication in the village, where we could almost start to develop some of that, some of those job objectives through maybe someone who's interested in marketing out of the high school. Or something. That was something that was mentioned previously, but over a long arc of developing that as a full-time position. Because I'm guessing we're not that close to putting someone in that space now, I don't think, but maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, from a staffing perspective.
So what I'm hearing Dave talk about is different. It's more of like you're a business owner, you're gonna open a brand new business. And while the village helped you with all your permits and get everything set, once you open your business, you're kind of on your own. So could there be a program in that for your first year of being in business that you have somebody that kind of walks you through things to consider and how's your marketing plan going, or how's, almost like a business
mentoring standpoint.
Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, and it's really primarily for small or brand new entrepreneurs that are like, hey, I'm really good at baking and I just opened a shop, but everything else, accounting, marketing, permits, facade, whatever, I don't know where to go. And I would love to connect with someone or the chamber. Maybe it's a combination of both. I don't know.
Okay.
I just look at how many small business owners or how many people are hesitant to jumping in before, when the opportunity is there, and they're hesitant to do so because all the unknowns.
I wonder if, Karen, with your comment of the chamber really having that type of program, if what the village's role is a handoff or an introduction into that program, right?
Yeah.
Once you've done permits and you've gotten everything, then the village's role is, hey, we want to introduce you to the chamber.
Yes.
They have a program you may be interested in. Here's their contact information. Chamber, here's a new business. We'd love for you to get in contact with, kind of matchmaker, and then the village is out of it.
I would like that.
That's happening right now.
Good.
Most of these new companies coming to town are chamber members before they even move into their buildings.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Well, I can't say for all small businesses, but manufacturing guys, we introduced them to Cheney. She's really responsible about that.
I know the new business, going into Jimmy's Sports Bar, Hark's Lounge.
Mhm.
He got his liquor license and then like a week later was a chamber member and now he's going through his permits, so.
Okay.
That's great.
Now, okay, so is there anywhere we can capture these ideas in terms of this matrix as far as strategy? What do you think? You got
So just under provide additional resources, I just added a new business mentorship program with the chamber.
like that?
And then,
And that handoff, I think that's good too, to have that in there, even though we're doing it, formalize it.
a new,
Put it in and, okay, cool. All right, so, communicate through various mediums, types of companies that our residents want. Have we nailed that
I
yet?
think that was your survey, like how.
That's the
I
survey.
think Gabe did it before a couple of years ago when we
Yeah.
got things, everybody wanted a bakery and a coffee shop and something else downtown.
Okay, and I think that's an important strategy to maintain. Would we agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. Communicate anything from, ways that lens of communication for diversifying the local economy? Any strategies that we can, any additional ones in diversifying? It's, obviously diversifying local economy is something that we've highlighted as a very important goal. And outside of those two, coordinate with chamber to be sure we push out workshops they're holding. Anything else?
A lot.
It is. And obviously we're gonna have a lot of strategies here. We'll have to whittle down. But yeah, I think we've got a lot. Okay. So enhance the community's image. One of the things we had said as far as achieving that goal through communication is push out the communication regarding the facade program participants. Was one of the strategies that we talked about, because obviously the facade program helps to enhance the community's image. So I think that should stay. In terms of a strategy that we can use. Is everybody in agreement with that one?
Yeah.
Highlight companies that make investments into the exterior of their buildings. They're kind of the same.
Into the interior or exterior? Oh, exterior.
Yeah.
I interpret that as improvements outside of the facade program, right?
Yeah.
Someone that takes the initiative that just recently, what comes to mind is the parking lot blocks. And the fact they took the initiative to do that. That's not so much the building or the
Sure.
facade, but parking lot's been, the condition it's been for 20 years.
Yeah.
And, they recently took over that business, spent a ton of money in refrigeration and remodeling, and then stepped up to the plate and had that parking lot tore out and repaved. For a small business like that, I perceive that to be a big nut to,
Sure.
they put a lot of money in that.
I'd expand it beyond just the exterior though. Because like with building across the street, not to call it the Rose Garden anymore, but if the lease is signed and a new tenant remodels the inside, like highlighting the remodeling of an interior.
Sure. All investments.
New business, absolutely. When someone takes the initiative on their own dime to do something, I agree. I think that's important to recognize that, feature that in some way.
Sure.
Okay. Also garner interest for people to support the business, to come
Right.
see the renovations or the.
So we could just take out exterior. Highlight companies that make investments into their buildings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or might even be a new production line.
Well, I was gonna say, right?
We're about to talk about one under new business soon.
Yeah, like if there's this new, I know there's advancements all the time manufacturing, you know it way better than I do, but some new technology is being used in town that's kind of a groundbreak technology, that could be really cool.
Yeah.
Or even a person's accomplishment. People love to read about other people, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody gets an award or has some big accomplishment that's noteworthy.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a separate, like a new one under there for the community's image is support and highlight local business member accomplishments or.
Yeah.
Community member accomplishments.
Yeah.
That way
Community
it's
member
not just
accomplishments.
business. but
Right.
If the Lions Club gets
Yeah.
awarded something or, somebody wins a citizenship award or whatever it may be.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Highlight
Which made great press releases too, for
accomplishments.
TJ's point, to all the different publications.
Highlight options, local citizens or organizations. Okay. Well, that's a lot. That's good. Well, and assuming we'll be busy for years to come, but the staff will be busy. Okay, in terms of communication, do we have anything else in terms of providing additional resources, enhancing the community's image, diversifying the local economy, or attract and retain businesses? Or do we feel like we've kind of got a good chunk of strategies here that we can include from a brainstorming perspective into the prioritization project? We feel good?
Very good.
Okay, I feel real good, actually. Okay, all right, 2 more columns, 2 more lenses off the book. So we're making steady progress. So I will, I'll update these and I will send these out actually before the next meeting. So that we can think about village approval as a lens as well as infrastructure as a lens. Those are our last 2 lenses. And then the updated finalized ones that we've created for strategies before the next meeting.
Awesome.
Okay. I think just real quick, going to the next item on the agenda, which is the Hampshire's very own.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
In the last BDC meeting, it was recommended that the BDC and Beautification Committee be featured in Hampshire's very own.
Yeah, you're correct on that. In that.
So I don't know where it falls in this list. How long is Chicken Dip open for?
Until November.
Yeah, I think it's the first week of November, last week of October, something like that.
Okay, so if they should probably be the next one, right? I mean,
Yeah, I would agree with that. Hold on, I'm trying to get to that, my notes. Okay, we said it should be the next thing. So I need to get with Jeannie on that. I'll take that as my action item. Okay, so we want to insert that. You're correct. BDC, or should we keep Chicken Dip and then BDC after that, just be given their seasonal closing, probably, right?
yeah.
So we'll make it the second. Okay, I'll get her an updated list. Okay, cool. Any other thoughts on Hampshire's very own?
I think once it's open, we can add the Hampshire Social and then the new, what's it called?
Hearts
again?
Lounge?
Hearts Lounge.
Yeah.
After Iron Walk at the end.
Yeah, those will be the next 2, I think. Specifically, anybody opening new we should try to marry those 2 things together at the same time as their openings. Okay, Jay, you had mentioned that you have some updates on new and existing businesses in the village. Would you mind sharing?
Nothing earth shattering really, but actually one of our existing I'll have Josh put this up since we just received the plat today, or the site plan. Buckhead Beef is gonna put in a whole new production line.
Oh, wow.
They're gonna start making beef patties for their customers. They sell it, I think they're a Cisco company. Not Cisco Systems, sorry, no system. They are.
A little different.
Yeah.
I don't want to eat that stuff.
But they sell mostly to restaurants and commercial food entities, and they contacted us recently, and so it's almost a doubling of the building.
Yeah, so this is the picture of what it looks like down here. It's kind of this L-shaped, and basically right now, they're gonna fill in this big gap right here with about 28,000 square feet. So everything that's highlighted in red is gonna be new, or that's outlined in red is gonna be new.
Not doubling.
Yeah, not quite doubling, but it's gonna be probably a 25% increase.
In fact, they had a challenge. This is how we do keep involved with these companies. Their production manager called me and they were having trouble getting with ComEd. They need additional power for this production line. The production line was scheduled not for this building, but they have a different one going online there, and ComEd was backed up. They couldn't get through. I called the government relations guy from ComEd. He said, yeah, those generators, not generators, but those transformers are back ordered. They're really hard to get. I suggest that they just go online and buy one for a couple $1,000s and put it in, and then we'll come back later and put ours in. So I communicated that back to the company, and they said, gee, thanks a lot, because ComEd just called us and said our transformers in. So we didn't do anything really, but we and Conway both got a lot of credit. They got everything. And I told them, I said, look, I didn't even have a chance to do anything, but they do call us about things like that.
Okay.
Buckhead had for a while, I don't know if they still do it or not, but they had been posting on Facebook that you could, like, people in the community could order from them on certain days.
Yeah, that was during COVID when they were.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing that anymore.
I don't think so. At least I haven't seen it.
I did
I
it.
know it. Yeah, I did too. You
Yeah.
drove up and sat in the parking lot and they brought it out to you.
Yeah, yeah, you just pull up and, yeah,
But it's a good ribeye show.
yeah, we bought some, I don't remember exactly what it was, but
It was just a cool thing that they did for the local community.
Oh, so, sorry, the Freight Union, if you've been up there, the walls are up. It's really going up fast. Take a drive up Gas Road. Got that beautiful canopy of trees over it right now. It's shady, beautiful new pavement. There's a nice water line under there, $1 million water line that nobody knows under there, except does. And then that building is going up on the corner really fast. So it's fun to watch these buildings go up. So take a drive up north.
Okay.
Get a chance. What else? Vista Trucking is also coming together. Real nicely. That's in the logistics park. That'll be the anchor of the logistics park. And Old Dominion Freight. They now have I believe they have a deal just north of Petit. 20 acres just north of Petit. So that'll take Ryan Drive a little further north, not all the way north, but a little further north. And Project Yukon is still alive. It's now 1.5 million square feet. I'll make this really quick, but it was really interesting. We were sitting here, what was it, Wednesday? And I got a phone call from the broker who said, need you just 5 minutes, quick deal. So what had happened is they wanted 220 acres of the, none of this is confidential, only the name of the company is confidential. They wanted only 220 acres of the Van Blissingen property. It's the only site that really met their criteria. The site behind Elgeloy would be perfect, except there's 40 acres owned by a landowner here in town that will not budge. I've spoken to his brother, the administrator of their family estate, and he's a real nice guy, but his brother won't even let him give me his phone number. It's only 40 acres, and they're offering ridiculous money for it because it would make a deal for 160 acres. And he won't even return a phone call. So I mean, it's his land, he can do with it what he wants. But I asked his brother what he plans to do with it. He said that he doesn't know. He's just kind of hanging on to it, thinking about it. So meanwhile, a big project like that just goes away potentially. But so now they're focusing on Van Blissingen property, and they wanted us to find an investor who would buy 500 acres because he wouldn't break it up and then sell that at 220 that they want. We actually had somebody interested. And then that day we got a call from them and they said they changed their mind. They may buy the whole 500 acres themselves. That was just last Wednesday. So I think they're gotta be careful because I have a sense of this company has retail stores. This would support the retail. The retail philosophy is to buy lots and then buy all the lots around it so that they then benefit by the real estate that surrounds their stores. Use your imagination. A lot of stores do that. I think maybe that's the concept here, is that they would use the 220 acres and then maybe they would just go ahead and develop the rest or sell it off as parcels. First of all, we were not even in the final 3 sites that they recommended because our other 2 sites, Shireland and the site behind Eljoy, both were eliminated because the one site couldn't get 40 acres, the other site has. Shireland has too much grade change. You couldn't get enough flat ground to make it work. So this other land works really well now. And then somehow and by the way, Van Blissingen put together a whole RFP for them. We responded to their RFP, an entire proposal really went out there. And they told us what they wanted for the land. And then when they made the proposal, it was quite a bit less, 15, 20% less. So they got pretty aggressive in trying to do this deal. And then out of the blue, I got a call 10 minutes back later from the same broker saying, well, we just noticed there's a big creek running right through the middle of that site. That handy about it. I don't know how you could miss it. I mean, it's like right through the middle of it. Can the village do anything about that? Can you guys move the creek? And I said, no, but in a $65 million deal, there's probably a couple $1 million that could move that creek. So that's right now, that's the route. I want to back up just a second and say they narrowed it to 3 sites and we were not one of them. And then I take it back. the broker submitted 7 sites, and we were not in any of the 7. But when the client came back, they chose 3 sites, 2 of the 7 that the broker recommended, and our site. So it wasn't even recommended by the broker. And the client came back and said, no, we still want that site, and we'll buy the whole 500 acres.
Wow.
But now, they have figured out, where's the creek, got blown up. So,
Yeah, I was just trying to give you a frame of reference. So here's the interchange at 90 and 20. Here in the corner. But this is the site right here. This
This
is
is Prior Hill Road, that, there's Lakewood to the right.
Yeah, this is Lakewood right here, so this is that land that's owned to the west of Lakewood. And this, I can't highlight it all at once because I can only click on one parcel at a time, but this kind of land that I'm clicking through is the 220 acres that they were looking at. And this pink area is the creek and the 100-year floodplain around the creek that runs right through it.
I mean, you can't miss that. I don't know how they got even past page 1 of the RFP without noticing there's a creek. So that's where you kind of, it is probably dead because of the creek, but it was almost the real deal. So we'll see. I mean, we talked to the broker and the landowner about possibility, who would come up with the funding to relocate the creek. We'll see how bad they like it. The other 2, the reason I think they're so focused here is the other 2 sites, well, neither one of them have water, sewer, or electric. So it's gonna take them at least 2 years just to get where they have services to the sites.
Sure.
Looking at creek sounds easy.
And this site has water and sewer on it. I mean, this fire hydrants pop up. According to this. So we'll see. That's the update on.
Okay.
Yes, it
I don't think so. Okay, thank you guys for that. We appreciate the updates. Seems like things are continuing to move forward in Hampshire. Appreciate the work you guys continue to do. Does anybody have anything else to add before we adjourn? Bill, you look like you're chomping at the bit. Champing at the bit. I'm fading.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning, please indicate by saying aye.
I
All those opposed, you're crazy. The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned at
Thank you all.
8:34.
Good
Thank you.
evening.